The year 1962 brought about great change in America, from space to pop culture to the Cuban Missile Crisis. 1962 is a year to remember. The cost of living in 1962 was quite different from what it is today. A dozen eggs cost 32 cents, while a gallon of gas was just 28 cents. The average American only owed $110 on average for monthly rent, with a new house only costing $12,500. Of course, while these prices might seem staggeringly low, keep in mind that the average yearly income in the United States was just $5,556 per year. Popular toys in 1962 included the Chatty Cathy doll, the Etch-a-Sketch, and Flintstones-themed toys such as the Flintstones building boulders. Fashion became more bold, with flashy patterns and bright colors. Meanwhile, folk music slowly transformed into a form of protest, while pop art became more mainstream after Andy Warhol presented his painting of soup cans. Popular TV shows at the time included the Beverly Hillbillies.
That flimsy grate holds up.
Granny!
And the Dick Van Dyke Show.
I wrote down a quote from Ralph Waldo Emerson.
What show's he write for?
As pop culture metamorphosed into the glitz and glam that was the 60s and 70s, America's political climate grew darker. While President John F. Kennedy was a beacon of hope during the political turmoil, every American was on edge, bracing for an impending nuclear war. While tensions with the Soviet Union had been high for years, they reached a boiling point during the Cuban Missile Crisis and narrowly averted catastrophe that could have easily destroyed the nation. In today's video, we're going to travel back in time to the year 1962. Make sure you stick around until the very end, where we'll take an in-depth look at the Cuban Missile Crisis. Before we get started, don't forget to like this video and be sure to subscribe and click that notification bell so you can stay up to date with all of our videos. FactsVerse presents the year 1962. January 1st, the U.S. Navy SEALs are created. On January 1st, the United States Navy created the U.S. Navy SEALs. The Navy SEALs were created as a special operations force designed to go on missions in specialized terrains. Navy SEALs are often used to gather information behind enemy lines, as well as assassinate special targets. January 26th, NASA launches the Ranger 3 mission. NASA launched the Ranger 3 mission on January 26th. This spacecraft was created to study the Moon. However, the mission was unfortunately unsuccessful, as the spacecraft missed its target by 22,000 miles. While this was in no way a success for NASA or for America, the space program still learned a lot of valuable information. NASA was able to learn from their mistakes, and eventually, 7 years later, they were able to land a man on the Moon. February 20th, NASA launches Friendship 7. While the Ranger 3 mission was not a success, NASA wasn't about to give up their missions in space. On February 20th, they launched a man named John Glenn aboard the Friendship 7. John Glenn became the first American to orbit the Earth in its entirety. However, the spacecraft didn't just circle the Earth once. It orbited Earth 3 times. The flight lasted just under 5 hours, and John Glenn landed safely back on Earth. March 1st. The first Kmart department store opens. The first department store to officially be named Kmart opened on March 1, 1962 in Garden City, Michigan. Kmart became so successful that it even put several competing companies out of business during the 1960s. While the first Kmart store was technically opened in 1899, it was known under the S.S. Kresge Incorporation, and it wasn't until 1962 that the store became the Kmart that we know today. Click the like button if you were surprised to learn that the first Kmart is over a century old. April 21st, the Space Needle is completed. The construction of the Space Needle, a 650-foot-tall building complete with a rotating restaurant, finally finished April 21st in Seattle, Washington. The timing was perfect because the wonder of construction was completed just in time for the World's Fair, which lasted from April 21st to October 21st. April 26th, Ranger 4 is launched. After NASA's victory after launching Friendship 7, they knew that it was time to take things up a notch. Like the Ranger 3 mission, Ranger 4 was sent to land on the Moon and send pictures of the Moon's surface. This mission was far more successful than its predecessor, and it became the first American spacecraft to land on another celestial body. Sadly, due to a malfunction with its solar panels, Ranger 4 crashed on the Moon and was unable to send any pictures. Still, the mission was largely a success, and it would pave the way to more space advancements in the future. May 19th. Marilyn Monroe sings Happy Birthday to President John F. Kennedy. In one of her final public performances before her tragic death, Marilyn Monroe sang Happy Birthday to President John F. Kennedy on May 19th.
Happy birthday to you.
Monroe's sultry performance and suggestive outfit were enough for many people to become suspicious that she was having an affair with the president, although the suspicions were never confirmed. July 2nd, the first Walmart opens. Walmart's grand opening was not far behind Kmart. On July 2nd, the world's first Walmart opened in Rogers, Arkansas by a man named Sam Walton. Today, it is one of the country's most well-known discount stores. Sam Walton got his start opening a local dime store, but all of that would change when he opened the first Walmart when he was 44 years old. July 9th, Andy Warhol's Campbell's Soup Cans is debuted at an art exhibition. This iconic Warhol painting was one of many by this artist that featured cans of Campbell's soup, but they all started with this set of paintings. Campbell's Soup Cans is a collection of 32 different canvas paintings, each depicting a different can of soup. Although this is one of his most famous works today, it was not initially well received by critics. Many people believed that art should be moving and complex, and complained that Warhol's work focused on a mundane object that anyone could see on a trip to the grocery store. As a result, no one wanted his art, permitting one collector to buy the entire set of Campbell's soup cans for just $1,000. Just a few years later, in 1970, Warhol would become the highest-priced American artist, and his paintings today go for tens of millions of dollars. August 5th, Marilyn Monroe is found dead. Just a few months after her iconic Happy Birthday performance for President John F. Kennedy, Marilyn Monroe was found dead in her home in Los Angeles, California. She died of an overdose of sleeping pills. Her death shook the nation as she was the most iconic and beloved star at the time.
He was kind of scary looking, but he wasn't really all bad.
Who knows what amazing things she could have accomplished had she not died so young. August 10th, Spider-Man makes his first appearance. The Amazing Spider-Man made his first appearance in a Marvel comic on August 10th in the 15th issue of the comic series entitled Amazing Fantasy. The superhero was an instant hit, and before long he became the face of Marvel Comics. Today, Spider-Man is played by the young actor Tom Holland, whose performance certainly does the character justice. September 26th, The Beverly Hillbillies airs for the first time. The sitcom series The Beverly Hillbillies debuted with some fairly harsh reviews from critics. One critic even called the show painful to sit through. Despite these poor reviews, however, The Beverly Hillbillies was an overnight success and became the #1 television program in the U.S. It kept this momentum going in its second season, when it became even more popular and earned some of the highest ratings ever recorded for a half-hour sitcom. One particular episode from Season 2, called The Giant Jackrabbit, broke the record for the most-watched television broadcast at the time, and to this day remains the most-watched half-hour sitcom episode of all time. October 1st, Johnny Carson takes over The Tonight Show. The Beverly Hillbillies weren't the only ones making a splash in television this year. On October 1st, Johnny Carson made his debut as the host of The Tonight Show for the very first time. With Johnny Carson at its helm, The Tonight Show established the modern format of the late-night talk show that we all recognize today. He began with a monologue, then sketch comedy, and then moved on to guest interviews before ending the show with performances from musicians or stand-up comedians. Johnny Carson ruled the late-night scene for 30 years before retiring and passing the torch to Jay Leno. October 5th, the Beatles release Love Me Do. The Beatles released their first single, Love Me Do, on October 5th. While Love Me Do was released in the UK at the time, it wasn't until 2 years later, on April 27, 1964, that the single was finally released in America. The UK band would rise to unbelievable popularity, and even today they are considered one of the most iconic musical groups in the world. October 5th, the first James Bond movie is released. On the same day that the Beatles released their first single, the first James Bond movie, Dr. No, also came out, but again, only in the UK.
Mr.
Bond. James Bond.
Fortunately, it was a huge hit, and it was quickly brought to American audiences just a few months later. The British Spy would win the hearts of audiences all over the world, and the franchise shows no signs of stopping anytime soon. This movie was based on the Ian Fleming novel Dr. No, but it would go on to inspire many more movies long after the first one was released. October 15th, the Cuban Missile Crisis. The Cuban Missile Crisis was the boiling point of America's Cold War with the Soviet Union. As early as April, the U.S. began to suspect that Soviet Russia was building a missile base in Cuba, but it wasn't until October 14th that the country knew for sure. President John F. Kennedy ordered Soviet Russia to remove the missile base, threatening to begin war if they did not. Soviet Russia was hesitant to back down at first, and the U.S. sent forces near the base. The nation waited with bated breath to see what would happen next. Finally, on October 28th, Soviet Premier Nikita Khrushchev announced over Radio Moscow that he finally agreed to remove the missiles. It wasn't until November 20th, however, that the missile base was finally removed, and the two countries retreated to uneasy watchfulness. Thankfully, with some careful planning, America was able to avoid an all-out war with Soviet Russia. 1962 was truly a year to remember. Were you more surprised to learn that the Beatles released their first single on that same day that the first James Bond movie was released? Or to learn that NASA finally landed a spacecraft on the moon? Let us know in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe to FactsVerse for more.